be pretty good. Okay, it's spitting out a bunch, 20, 24, 61. Oh, now we got 1, okay? Which is not what we wanted. We wanted this number to be between 20 and 80, okay? So that's fine. It didn't quite work. We're getting these lower numbers. I just saw 3 right there. There's 4 point something. So we want to make sure that this number is above 20, right? Right. So this wasn't exactly right. This is a good start. This is actually giving us numbers between 0 and 80 to just multiply rand by 80. So why don't we just add 20 to this, right? If we put 20 plus rand times 80, now we know it's going to be, at a minimum, it's going to be 20, and then this could be anywhere from 0 to 80. So maybe this will work. All right, let's hit it. Okay, first thing we got 76. That's good. 62. All right, 66. Not bad. Oh, suddenly we got 81. Okay, and now there's another one that's above 80, and that one's 85. Okay, so that's not quite right either. That one's 89, right? Because if we add 20 to it, okay, we're starting at 20. The most that this could be, if rand was 1 times 80, would be 80, and 80 plus 20 is 100. Okay, so this would give us a number between 20 and 100. Okay, but if we want to get a number between 20 and 80, we're actually going to do 20 plus rand times 60. Okay, because this is the lower limit that we want, and 60 is how much farther above 20 we want to go. If we want to have a maximum of 80, then we want to have 20 plus 60. Now this should give us a number between 20 and 80. So it's just a little bit of math. The key point to remember is that rand always gives us a number between 0 and 1. So when you multiply that by another number, the most it could be is that number, and the least it could be is 0. All right, let's get back to the next function that we're going to learn, which is actually a little extension on rand, is to use something called randomize. Now let me go back to Visual Basic. So you'll notice I'm going to run this program, and the first time I get 62.33. Okay, then I'm going to stop it, and I'm going to run it again. And I'm going to press this button. I'm going to say, oh, suddenly it's 62.33. But wait a minute, I thought this was supposed to give us a random number, not some just regular old number that comes up the same every time. Well, when I keep pressing the button changes, or the number changes. But every time I run the program, I get that same first number, 62.33. And actually, the second number is 52. Let's try and run it again. Now I get 62, and then I get 52 again. Okay, so it does give us random numbers, rand, right? But it gives us random numbers that are the same every time. Okay, so every time you run the program, you're going to get the same random numbers. If you don't want that behavior, all you have to do is write randomize right here in the beginning. And that's all it takes. If I say randomize, now when I run the program, I'm not going to get that 62 that I got the first time. Okay, so let's just review that in the slides. If you want your program to have totally different numbers every time you run it, you do a randomize thing first, and then you do your rand stuff. Now you only have to do this randomize thing once. If you have lots of random numbers in your program, you just have to do it once. If you want to have the same random numbers every time, if you want them to be the same time each time you run the program, then you don't do the randomize. You can just have your rand in there just normally. All right, so the next question is, well, what if I want to get a number between 20 and 80 that is not a decimal? What if I want it to be an integer? Well, good thing is that there's a special function that's built into VB.NET that's called math.round, okay? And it rounds a number to however many decimal places you want. And math.round is a good example because it has 2 arguments. Remember, arguments are the things we pass to the function within those parentheses. The first argument that we send it is the number we want to round, and the second number we send to it is how many decimal places we want to round it to. So, for example, if we have math.round is 15, or math.round of 15.242442, comma 3, okay, this is the number we want to round, and then if we use the comma 3, it will round it to 3 decimal places. So we'll get a message box, if we put this in a message box, that would have it with 3 decimal places. Okay? Actually, if we said math.round and then put 0 over here, so we put the long number and then comma 0, it will round it so that there's 0 decimal places, and it'll actually give us an integer. So this can be a really helpful function to give you integers if you have long, ugly decimals. So I want to show you how this works. We're going to make you make a program that gives you a random integer between 100 and 300. And it's just going to be a little bit of a modification of what we have right now. Okay, so all we have to do now is change this to go between 100 and 300, and we want it to be an integer, so we need to round it somehow. So to go between 100 and 300, we use this same idea that we were using before, except the lowest number we want is 100, and the largest number we want is 300, so that's 200 more than 100. So let's check first of all that this is giving us numbers between 100 and 300. Yep, this looks good. The most I've seen is 252 right there, and they all seem to be above 100. So that's working. And again, we have this randomized function in here, which is making sure that we're getting different numbers every time, if that's what you want. Now, the last little bit that we have to do here is we have to learn how to round it. So to round something, all we do is put it into the math.round function. So we say math.round, and then we put it in parentheses, and that's it. Except that it has two arguments. Our first argument will be whatever number comes out of this, and our second argument would be how many decimal places we want. So if I put 3, for example, then I'll get numbers with 3 decimal places. Okay, and you can see all of these numbers that are popping up have 3 decimal places. But if I want to have no decimal places, if I want it to be an integer, then I just use 0. And there we go. We get integers between 100 and 300. Okay, so one thing that's nice and really interesting to note here before we continue, and we're almost done, is that you'll notice I have this 100 plus rand times 200 is actually inside the argument section of the function. Visual Basic is really smart. It actually does this math first and sends the result into the math.round function. I could do something like this, dim, a temp variable, a temporary variable as a double or as a decimal. Okay, and then I could say, all right, temp variable is equal to 100 plus rand times 200. Okay, and then I could put the temporary variable in here. Let me just explain what I've done again. Okay, I've declared some variable, little space to store some data, and then I took that math we did before to get a number between 100 and 300 and put that in the variable. Now I can say, all right, the text box is, all right, round that variable to 0 decimal places. Okay, but look at all that extra work I had to do. I had to declare this variable. I had to do all the math to put it in there. Whereas I can just take this math and stick it right there in the function and get rid of all this other junk. And that's going to work for me just fine as soon as I put that back up there. So we run this again and see numbers between 100 and 300. All right, so that does it. We've reviewed arguments. We went ahead and learned about how to use functions. Tomorrow we'll learn how to write our own functions, but for now we have several built-in functions like rand and math.round, which comprise your vocabulary for today, as well as the term function. We're going to have 2 assignments that are going to use this stuff, and then we're going to learn how to write our own functions afterwards. We're going to write a silly one that tests our use of random numbers. It's called horoscopes, and we're going to have you write 5 little horoscopes, and when you press a button, a random one of the 5 will be selected because horoscopes are silly and they're obviously random. And then we're actually going to set up a quick blackjack game where you're going to play the computer in blackjack. That one should be fun. All right, that does it. We've learned how to what a function is, and we can give examples of them, and we learned about rand and math.round, which are some powerful functions for numbers in our programs. Good luck.